Exactly. So to
You
say
have to
hi,
ask- yeah.
to say hi before we start, Thor Holt, welcome. Quintin Milne, welcome back, both of you.
Thank you, Eric. Nice to see you, Thor.
Hi, thank you.
Good to see you. So you asked me, Eric, how someone take the lead on how we know each other.
Yep.
I'm a very strange man in a raincoat, robbing something on my car, and I ran away when I got there, and there seemed to be some, I don't really know, but anyway, strangely, I kind of tried to run him off the road, and we became friends. There's no more to the story.
So this is a friendship born out of robbery.
Born out of weirdos in the woods, Eric.
Weirdos in the woods. Do we really want to pursue this? Do people really need to know this?
No, I just wanted to get my bit out of the way. We're starting now.
Thor, do you concur with that?
Do I what?
Do you agree with that appraisal of how you met?
Thank you for switching from concur to agree. I was thinking this is sounding highly intellectual for us, but do I agree? That's not quite my memory, but as they always say, if there's an accident and the police interview 3 witnesses, there are 3 different opinions on how something really, occurred. So no, my memory is that I've heard Q's name over the years as the legend that he is in the oil and gas world and this part of the world generally, the Northeast. And we finally ran into each other though just a couple of years ago, and as far as I'm concerned, we hit it off. I don't know, Q might have a different opinion, but I like his outspoken nature, and that is kind of who I am, and it's what I enjoy about my work, is helping other people be outspoken, usually in a positive way. But yeah, looking forward to this chat. And
yeah, it should be awesome. It should be absolutely great. So just as I said, welcome back to both of you. You're both Crux Cast alumni. Quintin, you were April 20th, Crux Cast 11. You came on to talk about mainly your new venture and the fact that you pivoted and all of that, but you also had, and we'll cover this with both of you, you both had deep concerns back then. I mean, you were April 20th, Thor, you were April 28th on Cruxcast 14. So you both had, I guess, opinions in a similar vein, but maybe approaching it from a slightly different angle. Quintin, you were coming very much from the fact that there was something really huge coming, and you didn't think that people had really got it in their heads how huge it was. You were like, the show must go on, but there's lots of people, I remember you saying, and I went back and reviewed it, there's lots of people having a really nice time on furlough.
Yeah.
So where have you come in 5 or 6 months in your thinking about where you were then, starting a new business with New Era, and then we'll come back to Thor. You take it from there. Where are you now?
I guess, Eric, yeah, nice to see you again and have a chat. I think touching on what Thor said there, Thor and I very like-minded, not to be outspoken or say it as it is. I think it's very much, there's an elephant in the room with society just now with we're too politically correct and wrapped in our own red tape. And, that's how Thor and I hit it off. He not just gave me some great kind of coaching. I would self-profess I've got many faults. Do not get me wrong. I've probably got more faults than most. But sales was not my problem for a long time. But Thor helped me with the simplest of things. And I've got to be aware of that today, to sometimes shut up and listen and let others speak. And it was damn good advice. It's made a huge help to me. So it's the little things sometimes. No, but anyway, as good as Thor is that, what to answer your question, nothing has changed in my opinion, but I was too ahead of myself in the sense of I underestimated. The reason why my opinion hasn't changed, in short, sorry for being long-winded, my opinion hasn't changed because I underestimated the government would do the furlough scheme and it would last as long as it has, and they would drag out this saga. I believe this very month, coincidentally, as we have this revisit of the Crux Cast, I'm now, you can both have your opinion, I'm now starting to see LinkedIn full of, from mothers, whilst I have a very diverse LinkedIn network, for example, from a business side, I'm seeing young mums who have been out of work 5 months saying, has anyone else told their kids it's bakery gifts for Christmas this year? Because mum's not had a job for a while. Yeah. I'm seeing loads of people offering up their vehicles and stuff for sale. Please just take on the payments, etc. I'm seeing some of the most senior drilling managers and personnel I've ever known fighting for active petitions to get back to work. So I believe it's just coming, Eric. I don't want to be the bearer of doom, but I do believe if we don't act and live with the virus soon, like Sweden or Florida, who have taken bad press, or even Donald Trump for all his faults, I do believe that, and there could be all kinds of haters and softies that can have an opinion on this video. And quite frankly, their opinion doesn't matter to me. And whether they think I'm arrogant or not, they're quite simply, there's a famous saying I'm quite fond of: wolves are not interested in the opinion of sheep. Now, you can quote me this down the line if I'm wrong, but I do believe, Eric, I really believe that if I've heard two interesting statements, which then I'll shut up. Oh, in the last month or two, you're 3 times more likely to die in a car on the way to a COVID test than from the statistical rates of COVID death. Number 2, the average death rate is 87, I believe. The average life the life expectancy of a man in the UK is at best 85. Well, if I'm as lucky as to get to 85, I expect the wind to take me over. You know, never mind COVID. And Thor's got a very good story about a really open-minded neighbour of his that he might touch on later. But anyway, there. So my opinion hasn't changed, and on to you.
So can I just say, just before we go on to Thor, you've been a bit guarded there. Can you be a bit more open and tell us exactly what you think from now on?
He's sitting on the fence again.
Thor, the last time we spoke, April 28th last year. Thank you so much, Quintin. We'll come back to that. The last time we spoke, you were deeply concerned about what was going on. You were seeing things happening around you, and you were urging people to find their purpose, find their story, and define that story to help them progress through this. Where are you in your thinking these days? How has it changed, or is it pretty much still the same?
I would still agree with that in terms of advice, whether people are running businesses or whether they are trying to get jobs, because if you're confident in your own story, then in really simple terms, you're more likely to be able to sell yourself or your business. So yeah, I'd say that advice still stands. But in terms of my thinking on the pandemic situation, I mean, I was a big proponent of and fan of lockdown for the couple of weeks I thought it was going to be at the beginning, partly because I've got a medical professional in my family, partly because I guess like everyone else, I saw what was happening on the news from China to Italy and so on. My daughter was in Italy when it all kicked off nearby in Bormio skiing. So I kind of felt it quite personally to begin with, and I thought lockdown was the right idea. However, after a few weeks, I'm a questioning, curious kind of guy, and I started listening to all the other perfectly legitimate scientists and doctors and medical people who were giving a slightly different or radically different point of view. And the longer time's gone on, the more concerned I am. Now, I happen to be able to benefit in my own little business from some of the changes because I'm helping more people try and get jobs. But that is just not the point. Seeing society degrade around us, seeing businesses go bankrupt is not something that gives me any thrill at all, despite that tiny personal benefit. So I'm really, I'll be honest, I'm pretty frustrated. I think the lack of purposeful leadership by Boris, for example, I don't have to pick on him because a lot of leaders have done the same thing, but it is like they're running scared, I guess, of the media. And I just think it's a real shame. And I think in a year or two's time, it'll be like when communism fell in Europe. You couldn't find a communist, a few days after after it ended. And I think it'll be the same in a year or two's time. People are going to look at this and just, those of us, even that stuck up for lockdown at the very beginning, will probably be ashamed of ourselves because the devastation will be so bad. Now, I've been called a doom master on LinkedIn. So I don't share that kind of opinion too much. And I try and keep it mainly positive. But since you asked, that's where my thinking's at.
No, quite right. And you both can't, well, you haven't apologized, but you both said that you've been called or like Quintin, you said you don't want to be the harbinger of doom. But there's a big difference between, in my daily business, I speak to a lot of management team a day kind of thing, give or take a day or two. And I see the same faces, some in some sort of realization that something's going on and they're going to have to make some kind of change, but some that just makes me feel anxious when I hear, well, we hear of some green shoots coming and we're just going to stay as we are because this is all going to come right and we'll just get back to the way. I'm still hearing that today, and it makes me kind of anxious that there's been no sense of urgency to get after, what, even asking that question, what if it doesn't, right? What if absolutely nothing changes from now on? What if our life as it is today is our life until we die? With confusion and awkwardness and strangeness around, I mean, if we just focus on business for a second instead of just the domestic angle, confusion around how we meet, how we chat, how we, whether there are ever going to be events again, trade shows and all of that. How do we get leads? How do we get work? How does all that? But there's a lot of people just sitting going, well, there's some green shoots coming, and actually we've got a project coming in January which we didn't think we were going to have, and that's really exciting.
Eric, I believe people as a whole, including myself, we can all be quite short-sighted, not see past, next week or the week after. I think I was amazed to see you. Sorry, I only part answered my question before. They asked me how my business was doing. Now, I used to be a car trader as well. I did a lot of fancy stuff, fancy motors on the side and things like that. I used them myself for a bit, and anything to turn a pound really back in the day. I've got a lot of ties to people that have been contacting me from London. A wealthy Jewish friend of mine offering me 10% on any Bentleys that come from the fire sale of the wake or the aftermath of Aberdeen. Now, what I'm trying to say is...
you got your edit button ready, Eric.
Yeah, I'm hovering over edit. I'm hovering over it.
I'm glad Quintin brought up Trump, because when I went for my massage yesterday, and there's a whole story there about the wisdom of the elderly, but anyway... when I went for my massage on my back yesterday and finally got there late, the massage therapist, who I share with Quintin, not on a personal level, but you know what I mean. We both
again hovering over edit, just hovering over edit.
Keep over that as well. Yeah. Her and I agreed that Quintin could be Scotland's Trump, and we should elect Quintin to be the outspoken leader of Scotland. So what do you think of that, Quintin? Oh, he's right in.
Oh my goodness me.
I might not be popular, boys, but I get some results within a week, I promise you. Anyway, my point was...
Quintin Milne is Scottish Trump. So back to friend trying to buy your Bentley's cheap.
The car trade, I sold a car in February, a fire sale thing. I'm being a bit too apprehensive, thinking to get rid of it. I won't go there. Lost a chunk of money. But then the car trade has been super buoyant for 6 months. And a quick story was I was looking to buy this off-road buggy myself. And always wanted, it was a third of its money, a real fancy thing. They don't come up for sale very often. Anyway, so I said to the guy in Glasgow, I think you should be grateful of my offer. It's 2/3 of what he was asking for it, quite substantial. Anyway, he said, mate, I don't know what planet you're on, but all my friends are going bananas just now. I said, what do you mean? I said, you know what's coming? And he got me a beauty. I left the phone, I came off the phone, and it's not often I'm speechless, but I was like this. He said to me, all my friends have had a bailout loan. So the price of super bikes and escort Cosworths have gone bananas down here. And it made me realize we've just given a load of people a five choice multiple questionnaire to get some money into their bank that they're taking on, albeit low interest, a load of extra debt that they've just squandered, etc. And that aside from the thing, back to my point about how business has been, I've lost quite a few clients, Eric. I've gained quite a few clients because they've lost their salespeople and force, so they've taken on my market intel. I'm keeping the wolf from the door. I'm in a better position than many, I'm sure. I'm very grateful for that. But the subject that really, one thing I want to plug on this thing, if anyone's got a chance to watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix, it's basically, I picked up the following few points quickly. It's the ex-heads of Google and Facebook, president level, etc., talking about how governments have the ability to shape our news feeds. Now, whether this could be seen as conspiracy theory, but you can buy demographic areas like Russia or China could potentially shape us in the UK against democracy. No one knows what the bottom line was. No one knows what to agree on the truth anymore. Everyone's fighting about, this is really bad news about coronavirus, leave your house and you'll die. Or there's people saying, it's a lot less bad than the flu. So no one really knows what to believe. And meanwhile, we bimble on going down through all this lockdowns when maybe it's not necessary. And the bottom line is, it could be all to do with, you both touched on it already in this interview, to do with the media. And I've got a real problem with arguably it could be a new type of warfare, making us all scared and get our panties in a twist. Meanwhile, they're buying up all our shares of what was once a great British nation. Yeah, it's just a theory. I may well be wrong.
Just chucking that out there. Yeah, just chucking that out there. Anyway, no, good stuff. Thor, you are probably the closest amongst all of us to people who are trying to find work, because you're with them every day, right? Multiple times a day. What is the if there is such a thing as a sort of common beating pulse throughout that community of people who are now looking for work in specific sectors or looking to move sectors? What's the general vibe that you've picked up in the last few months?
the general vibe is split in two, because you've got the people who are still in work, who are maybe disillusioned, especially in oil and gas companies, not only, but you typically when they're speaking to me, and they are still pretty optimistic. They think they can move, go to renewables or whatever, because they think oil and gas is dying often. Now, remember, this is self-selecting, because this is people that have chosen to speak to me and are considering a career move. So I can't call it legit. Nope. So you've got that kind of positive, slightly Pollyanna approach. I mean, some of them are right to be optimistic. Some of them are still being offered roles and things. So it's not necessarily crazy. And then you've got just the kind of more devastated end. You've got people that were, high performers that had done a great job, that had always survived previous redundancy rounds because they're great people, really performing. And now they've been out in work for many, many, many months. And that is a very hard psychological place to be. I mean, I've been out of work for a couple of weeks before in my life, and I found it really depressing. And my heart does go out to these people, because it's not like they've screwed up and ended up getting fired for some muppetry or malpractice or something. They've just been let go because things are completely radically different. And also because of fear, I guess, in some cases, knee-jerk reactions early on. But yeah, if you're in that situation and you've been made redundant in March, April, May, and it's now September, October, you can imagine it's a place where people are starting to lose hope. So yeah, I'm coming across as the doommeister again, but you asked me, so that's a real significant proportion of people that are applying for tons of things, getting either virtually none or no interviews. That's a very, very hard place to be.
And again, I don't want you to give away the keys to what you do with your clients and all of that. But for the people, and there will be many, there might even be some who don't know you, right, and don't know what you do. I can't imagine, with the amount of self-promotion that you do, which is incredible. I can't imagine that there's anyone on the 706 million members of LinkedIn who doesn't know who you are. But in case you're just that one guy who's sitting there and you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders, you're coming up against what can you do? What a couple of things to do to sort yourself out.
One thing you could do is take what you just said there, the self-promotion bit, and choose to treat it. It's what I call inverse paranoia or positive paranoia. Assume that you meant that as a positive, okay, and that actually you should be a blatant self-promoter. Because if you're not going to promote yourself, listen, pal, you've just been let go from Megacorp, right? You thought you had a secure job for life. You were there for 20 years. You did a great job, and now you're swimming around clueless. Well, start promoting yourself, start promoting your value proposition. And if you don't know what it is, work it out. But don't sit there thinking, oh, I'm applying for jobs. Why am I not getting a job? Well, because there are thousands of other people applying for the same jobs. So that'd be the one thing I'd do, is forget that fear of people saying, oh, you're a blatant self-promoter. Oh, I saw you on LinkedIn saying X, Y, Z. Yeah.
So what? This is my space.
If you're out there doing that, you're basically, get ready to be the keeper. You might be. So you might want to just get over that. See, the guy, I tried to get him on my podcast, but he was so busy being interviewed by all the majors by this time. Trevor Walton, I think it was, or Walden. Yeah. He went and just started handing out seats at the railway station. What is that if not blatant self-promotion? Good on you, man. Now he's got a job.
Did you see the? I think he was a business development guy, and I think he was 60. That just did press ups and burpees in a suit on his and it got like seriously like 20,000 likes and 10,000 comments, and he got a job out of it. Just promoting. But you're absolutely right. I did mean that with absolute kudos to you.
Inside the box, though, too. Good on him.
I know, but I work with people who even though the debts are piling up, even though the bank balance is going down, even though it would just be, they're really interesting folks with really interesting stories and great qualifications and experience, can't just find serious difficulty in just even writing a post.
Yeah.
just even doing it. It's like a serious fear. Worse than public speaking, I would say. What are people going to think of me?
Yeah.
That fear of what people think of you is an incredibly powerful force. And I think Q hit something at the start when he talked about the way society is going. Because weirdly, although people are more and more potentially able to use social media, there are so many people who are actually so terrified to say something that upsets or makes them look a bit daft or whatever, that they won't do it at all. And it is understandable. It's a tough one. I guess the one way to look at it is just start and like start with something really milquetoast, non-controversial. I mean, don't expect to necessarily get much traction with it, but at least just start, get something out there. I saw one earlier that I loved. The lady had put, it was something like, I can't think of anything to blog about, and she said something about potatoes. I can't remember. It was
That's right. Yeah, my head's like mincing tatties or something.
But her point was, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to do this. And it was enough to start conversations. And I thought, well, that's it's like breaking your duck. Just get started and then think of another one. Obviously, I'd be happy to help someone. If you ping me your ideas, I'm happy to ping something back to people. I can't do it for thousands, but I can do it for the odd person. So that's something I do, you know, now and again, just for no charge. Someone will send me a story idea or something they're thinking of posting, and I'll just help them and do a wee edit, a wee tweak, and then just to get them started. Yeah, but there are other people that will be willing to do that too. So just start sharing your ideas just with a friend first and bouncing it back and forward. That could be another way to do it, because then you share it with one person, you get the feedback. If they give you a slating, well, you've taken the slating already, so you might as well post it.
Yeah, totally. Quintin, what's happening in your world, your sectors that you're looking at? What's the update with how New Era, DQ, how all that's going?
Eric, New Era quoted a lot of jobs. People were really interested in the fixed cost servicing offers of having PR, digitalization, and sales help in-house. But there's been a real lack to stand on and purchase, whilst everyone kind of braces for hitting the water in their life raft, so to speak. As for DQ's been doing well in the sense we've decided to pivot, not just doing very early upstream project data for, you know, introducing you to the drilling manager, procurement manager for a new project that's getting drilled. There is still some drilling going on next year and the year after. But what we've done is we've taken on a specialist in renewables, a very senior guy. And we're giving a load of tender information for, you know, the next wind farm project or geothermal wells. And that's been of real interest to a lot of people, so they can pivot their business, so to speak. But Eric, if I'm brutally honest, there's a lot. If you're a fabrication company, for example, you can probably bid on the buoyancy parts of a wind turbine farm, you know. But if you make drill collars, or you have a certain type of lathe just to support the drilling industry, you're maybe limited on what you can quote for them. But all I can offer is a torch, a light at the end of the tunnel for other opportunities out there that you can put on your radar, and it's your choice whether you go after them or bid for them, etc. But yeah, I mean, whether it's business or Thor's good point about, you know, being positive and self-promotion, I'm all about that. I'm all in agreement with that. We're all products of our environment. Some of us have a lot of anxiety. Don't get me started on what I believe when I hear in that social dilemma program, which I couldn't argue with anything. There's no agenda in it. I would really like anyone to watch it if they can on Netflix. It made me delete Facebook and stuff from my phone after watching it. Like, wow, we're dependent on this hours a day. Children aren't going out on their first dates because someone doesn't have enough likes on their post, etc. But people are liking posts of people that are doers. Backflipping motorbikes or rallying a car or wheeling a motorbike, that gets likes. But by a sea of children being bred to just sit inside and like other people's posts, I've got a real problem with that. Yeah. And I said it to Thor earlier, just before when you were sorting your router and coming online. I believe it was Frank Zappa that was quoted as saying, "The meek shall inherit nothing." You know, it's quite a powerful line, and you can look at that in a lot of ways, maybe a bit harsh, but there's an argument there. There's, you know,
you have always been the guy that took us to new places on Crux Cast. You were the first person to mention Hitler, first person to quote Frank Zappa as a business mentor.
I couldn't even tell you what Frank Zappa looks like, but it's a line my father bestowed on me probably weekly, because he was, and much like him, I'm very opinionated and repeat myself all the time, one of my many faults. But yeah, he liked that line, you know.
Very good.
But then again, back to another thing, another favourite line of his was Napoleon Bonaparte supposedly said, "I'd rather have a lucky general than a good one." So we all need a bit of luck in this world.
Totally. Listen. We've all been in the mire of this for months, right? We've been up to our necks. We're all in a kind of, not a unique position, but a similar position where we are our bosses, right? Yeah. There are lots of people who have bosses, but we decide what we do with our time and where our focus goes and all of that. We've been, you know, we all know how it feels. If we don't do, nothing happens. There's no one else is going to pick it up and carry on. If you decide to have a day in your bed, or, you know, the family's not going to pick up what you do and carry on. So we have to be on it all the time. I've found the last few months, I've been up and down. I've been up and down. I think there's a kind of, there's a kind of misnomer that you have to be some sort of superhero in any form of weakness, and straying from any sort of positivity as a form of weakness. I don't think it is personally. There have been a few moments where I've had to take a knee, and Mrs. Doyle's come in and said, "Is everything okay?" And I'm like, I don't know today. I don't know. I'm in a bit of a funk. And then of course some things happen and I get back onto it and I clear my head and I go again. What is, as far as you guys see it, what is going to change as we move forward from this, from your own perspective? I know we don't have crystal balls. I know we don't have insight into every single information source on the planet, but what do you see as something that's going to change from now on? One of you grab that.
I'll go first if I may, Thor. My 2 points. Things can change on a positive. Things could change very quickly. For example, let's just say there was, because if people are running by all the toilet roll out of fear of another lockdown, they can't tell you about robberies or a potential war. A potential war with, say, China, for argument's sake, would see the price of petroleum go through the roof and put Aberdeen back on its feet quicker than a lot of people could imagine. But at the other side of the equation, that not happening, Eric, my second point on the other side is, I believe our nanny state that's wrapped in red tape and its own political correctness, I believe the government will start, the government ministers will start spitting out their tea when a major bank says we're away to close or have a Greece type situation. And you'll be amazed how quickly how they'll suddenly blame something else and say everyone back to work that's fit and able and shield the weak and vulnerable if you can. And before I shut up again, in the avoidance of any doubt, if you have the weaker elderly and they should be shielded at all costs, but the greater good, for the greater good, the fit and average healthy population should be working, in my opinion. And if I'm wrong there, I'm not pointing the finger. If my granny had to die or I had to die for my son not to be in holy jeans, sign me up. I'll take the chance. That's my attitude. I just see it as a kind of stand-on attitude. Some people watch this and think, who's a damn fool, or he's just, belligerent self. Well, I'm allowed my opinion too, and their opinion to me is weak and not focusing on the greater good for the long term.
Are you for masks or against masks, Quintin?
I certainly was, like Thor said, all about lockdown in the first couple of weeks and want to play the game. I have been playing the game of wearing masks, and when this started, I was going into the supermarket and washing my clothes and disinfecting every bag I took in. Because as time's gone on, I've seen the World Health Organization and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of fake news for everyone not to know what's good to watch or believe. I believe that's down to social media influences. But I've seen some serious, like doctors' surveys from places in London that saying herd immunity is where it's at. Lockdown doesn't work. There's far more deaths and trauma from people not getting cancer treatments or mental health issues than COVID. Because yes, it seems very contagious, but the actual effects, or maybe in this new strain, certainly aren't bad to your average 30-year-old. And I've got multiple friends that have had it. Confirmed, tested, some from the bar industry in Aberdeen, two days of a sniffle, and the third day they're out on the sauce again. Now if that's the general good, but it's almost, I've had people saying to me, you can't say that about if we were to lose a granny or an 80-year-old. Well, I'm sorry, no one's counting. Getting to 80 is an absolute privilege, whether you've wasted it or not. I don't think I'll make 80. I was quite fond of a libation or a gin and tonic for a long time.
Donald Milne. Thank you for your point, Donald. Thor, what do you see is going to, I don't even know if we can say we're going to come out of this, as this progresses, right? What do you see as things that have to change and things that will change? Maybe diverted to the way we're working or to the way we're living.
Eric, predictions have not usually been my game. I'll give you an example. Back when Mike Tyson fought Frank Bruno back in the day, some others will be old enough to remember, I foolishly betted with my heart, not my head, and I betted for Bruno to win, and I lost. And then when Trump was up for election, I thought a little differently, and that's because I actually had some knowledge about the background. I'd worked a bit in the States, and I used to be jet lagged 3 a.m. and or down at the mall speaking. I'd always loved chatting to worky people, cleaners, people in shopping malls and stuff. You get chatting and you find out what their real concerns are in life. You do what Quintin was mentioning earlier, and you shut up and listen. And it made me think that guy's going to get elected. So I bet 4-1, $250 on Trump to win. So my predictions got a wee bit better between those two, but this one is hard to call. Like, how do we predict what's going to happen? As Quintin says, you can get a black swan event where, you know, the current Cold War with China, because that's what it is, turns into a hot war. I don't know, somebody hacks Saudi Aramco's computer, not giving anyone any ideas, but someone hacks Saudi Aramco and, you know, oil production ceases in that country for a while and the price changes. There's so many different things, like so many variables. I just don't know. The one thing I know is it's going to be a very troubled few years.
Yeah.
It's the old thing, oh, it'll be green shoots, like you're saying, and it'll be better by Christmas. Well, maybe. I really hope I'm wrong, but I think it's more likely to be 5 to 10 years. And yeah, things will be structurally just completely different.
Oh, totally.
Accelerated, so many things, AI, etc. So many things have been accelerated. So many structural changes are happening.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to predict any exact change. I don't think working from home is going anywhere. I think the commercial property market was already a zombie market to a huge degree, and I think that could bring down banks, like Quintin says. Obviously, I hope none of this stuff happens, and I don't want to be a doom monger, but I do consider the downside, and that's what I.
But we have to, right? Because we are looking at downsides, whether it's COVID, whether it's domestic or national or international sort of government and politics. We have to consider downsides. It's what we have to do. We can't just go around glibly, just, you know, listening to the radio and having a great time and partying all the time. Quintin, what's keeping you going through all of this? What's keeping you sane and keeping you centered?
Eric, I first of all, I'd like to say I thought it was very honest words about you mentioning to your wife about taking a knee, and it takes a man to admit that. You know, I've turned to drink a few times. You know, God Almighty, let's have another bottle of red wine. Everything's going to be okay tomorrow. But what's keeping me going is I've got a young son now who's 17 months, and I don't want to be seen to be on my phone all the time. And if things have to go back to a reset where we'll all be more grateful of less, I've been really focusing on skills that I never really followed up when I was younger. I've been learning to hunt more, and I'm just reading up on fishing and stuff like that. Because if things had to get relatively primitive, this is Mr. Doomsday speaking again, you know, post Mad Max 2025.
Quintin Milne, do you have a bunker?
If I could,
do you have a bunker?
Eric, if I could afford one, yes. Unfortunately,
he's got a bunker.
4 million to make a good one.
Do you have gold bullion in a little safe? Yes, you do. You do.
Yeah,
wow.
For anyone watching this, I don't keep it in the house and pile away.
Yeah, no comment on the gold from me. So I've got, Eric, in terms of what keeps me going, I'm going to just read you the story. I already read it to Q, if that's okay.
Brilliant. Yeah.
It's great.
It's in your blood to read stories, right?
What opens is you can play this to the tune of Neighbours in your head. Everybody needs good neighbours. My car's in the garage this week. It was late afternoon. I'm walking along a busy country road to the nearest town. I'm increasingly late for my back fixing appointment. And I'm relearning that walking 3 miles takes a lot longer than driving 3 miles. Who'd have thunk it? It's just started to spit with rain when, hey, Thor! My neighbour shouts as he drives home in the opposite direction. And a minute later, he's turned his car and he's come back. Him, jump in, Thor. Me, shall I find my mask, Steve? Him, belly laughs. Don't be ridiculous, son. I'm in my 70s. There's 10 things will get me before COVID does. And I just said, I wish for you all neighbours like mine. Thank you, Steve. You're a legend.
Yeah. Legend, Steve. So you are.
That's what keeps me going. Situations like that. Just, you know, especially older folk, not always, but often older folk, and just their wisdom and friendliness and willingness to just have a crack and help out, and you don't give a shit what car you drive or whether you're walking along the road in the pissing rain. They'll do the bit and help out. And so I appreciated what Quintin said there about simpler things, you know, fishing, hunting, just back to basic.
I'm with you both. Maybe not fishing and hunting. I haven't gone that far yet, but in terms of, I think we got into, speaking for myself, I can't speak for everyone. I got into a bit of a bubble of looking after my business, saying hello to people and being friendly. I'm Glaswegian. It's kind of in my blood. Lockdown has made me look, okay, we're locked down a little bit, but it's made me look out more for things that I can do to help people. And I think if that spreads, and I see a lot of evidence of that, even with local neighbours here, if that comes out of this, that's great, I think.
Eric, that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. As a positive point, I've seen a lot of people interacting out in their gardens with their children, people that maybe were workaholics, 12-hour shifts or whatever, have had this time with their children. Every cloud has a silver lining. It's certainly been apparent to me as well. That's a good thing, without a doubt.
So Thor, you've given us a nice upbeat story. I think your point about coming together and neighbourliness and all of that. What other, just to finish this in a nice, we've been through the kind of doomsday chat and all of that, but we're talking about the fact that we're realists and we're thinking about options and how we deal with them. What good things are you seeing happening in the sort of daily bread that you do with your clients? What good things are coming about?
Well, actually, some good stuff in terms of some companies winning work and thriving, because there are some. So I know there's a doomsday side to what I'm saying, but it doesn't mean there aren't still positive things. I can think of 3 companies that I'm working with on pitch projects and executive coaching projects right now who are flying, absolutely flying. And 2 of them are in oil and gas service sector. So it's not a doom and gloom picture across the board.
No.
Yes, there's a lot of pain happening and a lot of pain coming, but some companies are still absolutely rising above it and flying. So aspirationally, that's still possible. And yeah, I don't want people to think I'm being a doom monger. I'm really not. I mean, there are some great things happening, some great businesses, some really driven individuals doing superb things. So yeah, I'd just like to leave it on that positive note, because there are positives.
I think so too. Quintin, what's positive about what's going on here? Because you're involved in a lot. You're looking at a lot of different business sectors and all of that. You must see a little glint of hope.
Eric, I do, to back up Thor, I've seen people turn their distilleries into hand sanitizers and a friend of mine made a few million quid in 3 months, to seeing families spend a lot more time together, as you touched on, and quality time. But the biggest positive that I'm starting to see people stand up and against kind of nanny state reactions. People are like, whether it's right or wrong, I'm seeing gyms down south saying we're not going to close because we're finished otherwise, and we're willing to live with it. Don't come to our gym if you feel at high risk, etc. I'll give you a quick laugh before I sign off, Eric. There is a lot of positivity. There's a lot of opportunities in renewable and geothermal. People are looking at new ways to get things that will save the earth online quicker, like renewable projects and stuff. And to back up your comment, the thing that stopped me drinking as much is I was finding myself having a bottle of wine or two and then waking up, and I'd look at my email. I'd wake up at 8 when the wee man got up and I'd say, "You have purchased another long-range rifle scope for your high-power crossbow." And I thought to myself, "Got to stop drinking. I go into this like Mad Max preparation mode of the drinking me. Must prepare for the apocalypse." Yeah.
Listen. We clearly, I mean, this should be a Rogan style 3.5 hours to get maximum value out of it. But we're limited by the amount of time that people would be prepared to watch us 3 maniacs. Right. Probably.
We're bored enough people by now. You're right.
Absolutely. But listen, it's been a pleasure. Let's make it a date to come back. So that's been a 5-month gap. Let's come back in 5 months' time and see how skinny and withered we all are, sitting around a candle. And Wild Bill Milne will be sitting there with guns, a tinfoil hat, the whole lot.
Oh, too funny. I hope not.
It's been brilliant, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll see you soon, right?
Thanks, Eric. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.